think Twitch doesn't work. Yeah, it's not working on Twitch. What's that? Sending. It ain't receiving. I think. Specifically says offline. But we are on YouTube. Well, let's stop streaming to Twitch and just go straight to YouTube. Fine. Okay. All right. I thought I would. I'll just wait for people to come in first. Organize my windows, anyways. Okay. All right, late night stream. Yeah, I will. Main lobby. Send now. Okay. Okay, so that's that. That's that. Stay off of Twitch because it doesn't work. For a reason. Just stream to YouTube. Okay, so for everybody that pops in, I'm going to be covering UI stuff. So let's switch over to that. So here I've got UEFN. Hopefully this is viewable. We're going to switch screens here and there, show you some coding and stuff. This right now is just a project that is just for testing and doing tutorials. So I thought I would talk about UI stuff. Let's launch this session really quickly so we have something running. See if we get anybody in on the stream. So I'm just loading into my edit session. Patiently. Okay, that's good. We're in. So what we want to do is get this edit session running so that when we make changes, then it'll update really quickly. Okay, so let's go back to UEFN. All right, so in UEFN, we want to think about the ways to access blocked message. Right. Sorry, got distracted. Okay, so what we want to do is talk about UI. So there's a bunch of ways to do UI stuff, and I guess I'll just turn it back to here. We're still waiting in session. And essentially there's three ways that are the most common. And the first way is with a pop-up pop-up controller. What is it called? Pop-up something or other. Okay, we're in. Of course, there's nothing really going on in this level because we haven't done anything. There's one button so far, so that's fine. Let's switch out to UEFN. Okay, so in UEFN, we can look inside of the devices. Not there. Inside of Fortnite devices, and there is the pop-up dialog device. Looks like this. Right, and the pop-up dialog device is pretty handy, but you can only use it to have one interaction. So while that's fine for a lot of people that just want somebody to pick a team or pick one weapon or pick one thing kind of idea, a lot of times it's not that good for picking, or it's never good for picking multiple things because it closes as soon as you hit a button inside of it. So that's the pop-up dialog device. The other device that we can use to show something on the screen is a HUD message device. And the HUD message device is not for interacting with, but to show stuff. So the pop-up can be used to just show stuff. You can also interact with it, but the HUD message device can be used to show a thing and then show you can show multiple lines. Can't get my audio working. Is my audio working? Maybe my audio is not working. Let me see. Yeah, if I unmute my stream, I can hear me. Okay, so keep working at it. Don't worry. Just type. I will get to that. So the HUD pop-up can be used per player, which is quite powerful because you can show the same HUD with different values in it, and it's super handy. Super handy. The next thing that is very commonly used is Verse UI. So if we open up the Verse panel here with the little green Verse thing, and then we'll switch over screens. This is my Verse screen. Let me just increase the size of the text so you guys can see it a little clearer. And what you can do inside of here, so we need a custom player, which I have up here. I put it all in one file. Not ideal. We might change this up in this tutorial, in this lesson. Opsman is here. How you doing? He says, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. I hope you're doing well as well. So what we're going to do is talk about these three ways to show stuff on screen. Personally, I find I use all of them. There are cases where you can use all three if you wanted to. at the same time, which is really common. A lot of people ask how to show currency or teams or some kind of changing value. So we're going to do that first. We're going to do that very first. And the easiest way to do that, it looks like we've got a bunch of stuff in here. I haven't looked at this in a while, so bear with me while I glance at what is going on here. I think none of this is useful to us right now. We'll get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. No, we'll keep the button, and we'll call this add resources button. So we're going to keep the player spawners in here. It looks like we got some red lines. Yeah, that's fine. Get rid of that. Get rid of these. That. Yeah, we don't need any of this or that. Let's keep this. Keep this. Yeah, we've already got something going in here. I must have already done this. Yeah. We already did this, you guys. We've already done this. But we're going to do it again. So I'm just going to leave this for now because I think that this could be useful to do some copying and pasting from. Yeah, see here, look at this. We've got this add gold and remove gold. I don't know what I was doing here. I guess it doesn't matter. This is just the tutorials. We're going to get rid of this array for now. And get rid of that. Need that. That's good. String message. That's good. Yeah. Let's take this comment and bring it up to here because that makes sense. Save, build, and then save the project. Okay. Ben Penn is here. What are we working on? We're working on UI stuff. So questions come in a lot about how to do UI stuff and how to change things inside of a UI thing. So let's head back to UEFN for a second here. And inside of UEFN, we've got our HUD device here. And over on the right-hand side, at least my right-hand side, we've got the details panel for the HUD. Now, there's not a lot to do in here. The only thing that I would think about is who this is going to be sent to. So I recommend setting it to triggering player so that you can set a HUD for each player. So each player will have their own HUD. Makes sense. Rough. UI is rough. It's true. There's a lot of things to think about. Okay, and then we're going to get rid of show for duration because we're going to have this thing show up forever. And we don't need a cue, so we're going to, like a sound. So we're going to get rid of the sound. And then we're going to set the placement to be custom. And we'll go top left. Okay. And we're going to make our own HUD message thing. So this one is the default, which is not what we want. We want something different. We're going to keep it on layer 0, but you can put any number in here. It only allows up to, I think, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you go to, say, the let's see the size, and you put in like 50 or something like that, and then you right click, copy, go up to the layer and hit paste, it'll allow layer 50. So there's no real limit on layers to use for HUDs. So you can have a lot of HUDs on your screen. I think that we have used, I can't remember, we've used a lot of HUDs in our maps, and each one has to live on a different layer unless they will overlap. And you can't have 2 HUDs on the same layer. So you have to have to be unique, or they'll just take over. Like the new one will take over the old one. So we'll just leave this at layer 0 for now. Who cares? Right? We don't want to allow multiple in the key. We're really just showing the one. Show behavior. If showing, okay, you can reset the display time. We don't have a display time. You can replay it or ignore it. We're going to ignore what happens if we call show. Okay, just ignore that. Reevaluate messages on show. Yes, we want to do that because we want to update the value in this HUD. We can set an intro and outro. I'm going to set it to none because I just want it to show up. And then when I send it away, if ever, I want nothing. I just want it to disappear. So we'll set those to none. The rest of this does not matter. We're going to make our own custom HUD item, HUD blueprint. So hopefully this is going to make some sense to everybody. So inside of our project, I've got a folder called blueprints. Inside of here, I've got we were doing something before about moving stuff around. That's not important right now. So I'm going to right click, user interface, widget blueprint. And there's two choices in here that you're going to get. User widget and modal dialog variant. Modal dialog variant is for the pop-up. It's a modal. So modals are pop-ups. It's the best way to remember it. You almost never, I mean, you use this if you use a pop-up, but pop-ups aren't that common. To be honest, they're limited, but you can do really cool things inside of pop-ups, like animations and stuff now. So there is a case for it, but maybe not too often. All right, let's go to the user widget, and then it's going to ask us, it's going to let us choose what we want the name is. We're going to call this gold resources UI underscore BP for me. So I'm going to double click this and it's going to open up on a different screen. So let's switch over to that screen. Okay, so this is, if you've never done this before, I encourage you to just play with this as much as you can. This is so useful to learn. But this is a blueprint creator screen. And the first thing you're going to do is just drag on a canvas panel anywhere. It just goes. And this is your screen. This is the screen of the player. So what you put in here is going to be your HUD. So let's go ahead and bring in an image. And we're going to put, I think I'm going to put it maybe here. And then open this up like that, maybe a bit bigger there. Okay. And then I want to draw this as a border. So let's zoom in a little bit and see what this looks like. And we don't want to mess with the margin. We want to mess with the size bit. And where is, see if I remember how to do this. Is it a border or is it a box? It's a box. Okay. That's what I was thinking. So 2 seconds while I'm essentially making something that a rounded box. There we go. Okay, rounded box. That's what we want. Okay, so then what we can do is set up square edges, and then we will set the inside as actually let's put a little bit of color in there. Okay. And so essentially we're designing the UI right here. And then we're going to do an outline. Put this all the way up to 1. And black is, no, let's make this white. Let's make a white outline. It's okay. And we want to make it a little bigger. Is it W that does this? What does this? That's the corner radius. We don't want that. We want the width. So let's make a big width in there, right? So far this is where my currency is going to be. So one thing to think about when you're doing this is where this big huge flower looking thing is. And I've put it up to top left because remember in our HUD we had it go top left. Okay, this is how you're making a blueprint that we're going to show. And then we're going to take a text block and we're going to drag this in here. And let's make this size a little bigger. 48. Let's make it yellow, like so. Let's make this a little bigger, like that. Just move it a bit. And let's write something, gold, 1000, something like that. So now we've got a UI, oh yeah, something like that. That is super simple. There's nothing special about this. This is very easy. Something like that. Let's put a bit of a shadow on this sucker. You can do a lot of stuff in here, which is really cool. Shadow offset and then color. Stuff one. And it puts a bit of that shadow in there. You see that? Maybe we'll make it 2. That's a proper shadow. Could actually just do like a 0.8 maybe for the alpha. But that's not important. So now that we've got this figured out, we can compile that. It runs, no problem there, right? And question coming in, Dex3Bood says, do you have a video how to deal with player maps or arrays of players? Yep. Check on the site on YouTube. And there's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them at least. Because it's a very important thing to do, dealing with the players. But we might be able to cover that. I'm just going to go over UI stuff for now, though, okay? Because pretty important. So now we've got this UI created, but we need to plug in what's going in the text here dynamically, right? So to do that, we're going to come down to the bottom. It says you need to add a view model. So we need to add a view model. So click that. And there's all these options in here, tons of options, right? So we have to be cautious of which one we choose. So the modal dialog, as we covered previously, was for the pop-up. There's a beacon, there's a HUD controller for equipped items, there's one for teams, there's a message view model, skilled interaction, the stats, timer, tracker, player info, there's all these in here. What you want is the message view model. And in the message view model, there's all these things that we can play with if we wanted to. So we're going to select that. We're done. Dismiss this, close this. Don't need that. Okay? So that's the easiest. And then we need to add a binding, what's called a binding. So a binding is a way to bind information from the outside to the inside. So you're creating a link. Binding is like a link. So let's do that. So we're going to add widget text block bindings, so the view bindings. There's animations over here as well. We're not going to cover animations right now. If we have time for that or interest in that, maybe. But that's a lot to cover. And so we're going to add a widget text block like this to the text block. So this is, we're going to add a binding to this text block. And you can see it's set here. We click this little pencil. We're going to hit text, double click that. We've got an arrow, meaning that whatever's in this field here is going to go to this text. So we hit this. We go to the HUD message, and we want to select the text of this as well. So that means we'll compile this. It works out. It's green. Save it. We're all good. Okay. And we can close that. So that means let's quickly switch over to UEFN. This HUD device has a message entry point here that you can set, which people usually set. This is usually where you set how the message of the HUD device. But we can do it with verse, right? So let's do that. Let's head back to our verse. Now, inside of my game manager here, we're going to add that HUD message device, which I'm going to just use this one, plus resources HUD, we're going to call it. Seems fine. We don't have a timer device, get rid of that. Add resources button. We have a button on the scene, so we're going to use add resources button. This works out well. We have our player spawner 1 and 2, so we're covered both of our player spawners. So we can do something when the player spawns in. Now, I've covered this before, and I think it's really, really important. Oh, we got some red down here. What's going on? Oh, yeah. Start timer. Don't do that. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in here we don't need. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Okay. Let's squish this up a bit. Okay, so the idea is we want to, well, we're going to save and build. So Control S, Control Shift B, we'll build it. Let's head back over to UEFN, select our game manager. Now, you may be new to Verse, or you may be new to UEFN, so I'm going to just delete this sucker. And you can see how I'm going to add this from my content browser here. Because when you build a Verse file, it shows up in here as a Verse class, and you drag it onto your scene like so. It turns into this little computer. Okay. And when we select this computer, we've got some stuff in here because they're editables. Let's go run back to Verse again. You can see in here we've got this thing called an editable. We've got the HUD, we got the button, we got our player spawners. Right? No problem. Easy peasy. This should be something you guys know how to do by now. If not, I don't know what to say. You're in trouble. But that's how you do it. That's how you would connect up this game manager and the items in your scene to your Verse code. So we're going to grab the HUD device, which is here. We use this little picker. And our button, we're just going to use this button that's over here. And then our two spawners. Hook those suckers up. Because we need to know when a player comes into the scene, into the game, to play, and that's when we will respond. We're not going to use on player added. Just don't use that. Always use the player spawner. All right. So now that we can do that by doing this, we subscribe to the spawn event. We can then do things to the player in here. So the first thing I always do and I always teach you guys is to have a custom player class that you instantiate with some stuff and do some stuff on. Now this would generally be in its own file, but we're just putting it in here for brevity, meaning, you know, for simplicity. Okay, so if that player exists, because we know that because they'd be in the player's map with the agent as the index, because we created a player's map right here. Right. The agent is the key, the index, and the custom player is the value in this map. So it's a key value array, essentially. So you can put stuff in it, not just have an index of a number. So the index has to be something that's comparable, so unique. Agents are unique. Handy. Okay, so if they're not in here, meaning like, you know, when you're making games, people usually get eliminated and stuff like that for whatever reason, and they'll respawn into the game. So the spawner will react while they respawn on the spawner. Do you want to do anything with them? And in some cases you might, but in our case we do not. Okay, so we're just going to give them a unique value, and then up that value. It's set in the game manager. It's a unique value that'll be going up 1 for every player that comes in. And then we just set them into the player's map in this way. This is not important, but to explain, you guys should already know this. But okay, if this succeeds, which it should, the next thing we want to do is set the HUD to the player. So show agent, just like that. And that's the easiest way to do that. So if we build and run this, so I just have to end the game because I had it running this whole time. So this resets, push changes. And then we gotta wait. All right, here we go. Uploading project. It should be quick. This is a very small project, obviously. Nothing. There's a button in here, and oh, I left the pop-up device in here. I guess I could do that. Let's get rid of that for now. I'm not going to use that for now because we're really just going to cover the HUD and verse today. I think. Yeah, we just gotta wait. Everybody always says, "What do you do when you're waiting around for your game to launch?" Sometimes you'd be working on other things, like you'll be okay. Well, while I'm waiting for that, maybe we'll go back into the verse, and then the next thing we're going to do is not just show this, but we're going to set a value, and then to do that, everything that goes into a HUD device has to be a message object. So a message object here. And the way you do that is you just make this little function and it localizes, right? Meaning that it can change other languages. Sometimes you just turn up the music and wait. And we're going to pass in a value that we want it to be. And that value is going to come in these little squiggly brackets. And that's how you set a string value. And you can even have more in here. Like, okay, so maybe we'll do this. I'm going to show you something a little extra. And we'll put gold amount, and that's going to be an int. Okay, so I've done this. There's nothing that's going to go wrong here because I haven't put in the string to message thing for this here. And we can go colon and then put in gold amount. So this is going to take both a string value and an int value, put them together, and make a message object that we'll pass into this HUD. Let's see if our game's running. Okay, it is running. Where's our HUD? Where's our HUD? Why hasn't it showed up in game? Okay, so now we got to find out what happened. So let's make sure that this is actually running, and we'll do this by going print show HUD, like that. Build. Okay. Save that. Push verse changes. Like that. Let's see what happens. Let's see if that runs. If that runs, then there's something wrong with the HUD. Okay, it does say show HUD, but we're not seeing the HUD. So no problem. Let's end that. Let's head back into the probably UEFN. Let's see if I did everything right. So let's head over to our HUD message device and triggering player is correct. Want that. And placement custom top left. Custom top left should be right. Oh, okay. Last thing to do, which I didn't do, obviously, was set what the HUD widget is. So it's good. This is part of the sorting things out process. I don't know why I forgot this, but we're going to go into our blueprints, and then we'll select this gold resources B. And we're just going to hit this little arrow here, and that will set that blueprint as the blueprint to use for the HUD. And then we push these changes. Save. And switch screens. Now we wait again. Luke ND says, could you explain the difference between a custom player class and a persistent stat table? Custom player class, persistent stat table. Do you mean like persistence in verse? Thinking you are. Totally different classes. A custom player class is something that just sort of lives in memory. Persistent stats live in a database somewhere. Yeah, you're not going to save your custom player anywhere other than in game. You would save a stat object, like how many eliminations they have, how many deaths or something, how much gold they have. how many coins they have, how many, I don't know, whatever you've got in your game, that's going to be a totally different thing. That's going to be a persistent data object, essentially. But your custom player is literally just the way to manage and control the player in your game. So totally different. Yeah, player's map is just a way for you to be able to get to your players and control them. So you want to show HUDs, or you want to give them health, or you want to give them money or take away or whatever. Okay, so here we go. We're back in the game now. And we can see we've got our HUD top left exactly where we put it. Let's see here. We'll open up this blueprint. We can see that it lives right here. But you can see the gold 1000 is gone. Right? It's empty now. Why is it empty? Well, because in the HUD message device, we left that field empty. And the way that it's going to show up is with this binding. We've set up a binding. We've told it, look, we're going to give you the value. It's in the binding. So now we have to set this with verse. All right, so let's end that and head back to verse. All right. So before we show this HUD to a player, we can copy paste this, set text, string to message, right? And we'll go gold. And then we have to set the amount. So we'll set 2,500, right? And you don't have to do this here. You could go gold 2,500. But then I would have to change how this works. I like this way. I think it's powerful. So if you wanted to get rid of the colon and put a dash in here, you'd only have to do it in one location. Yeah, so we'll leave it as a colon for now. So we can now just build this, right? Built successfully. And I'm going to push the verse changes. Take a look, see what happens. Bam. 2,500. Did I put a comma in there? I actually have no memory of doing that. Why did it format it? I've never seen that ever. I've learned something brand new on stream. For some reason, it formatted my int and put a comma in there. Okay. Interesting. I don't know why it does that. Anyways, but that's how you would set up what's going on in there. So let's do one more thing and we will end the game. And we're going to go and set up the button, add resources button. All right. So let's do that. On add resources button. Accepts an agent. Nothing returned. And we're going to do the same thing. Yeah. But we're going to set just a variable number. So let's random gold is an int. Yep, random int from like 1,000 to 3,000. Now get random int is going to say that I've got to use the verse.org random. I don't think this is not the right one. I don't know why it does this, but this is not. I don't think it's the right one because it's going to tell me that. Is this the right one? Because there's two of them. There's two of them now. And one is like your map can't be pushed because this is a beta version. Can we just quickly look at this? No. I don't know. I thought it was inside of temporary and then spatial math. Let's do this for a second. I really want to do this. Does that work? It's not in spatial math, eh? Let's get rid of that. If this works this way, but there are two of them. Oh well. And then we're going to take this random gold and we're going to double click properly and do that. And so every time we hit the button, which we have to set up here, so we'll go add resources button, interacted with event, subscribe, and then we'll grab this here, build, and push first changes. All right, we're back. Avatar Nate is here. Rodrigo Silva's here. Hello, everybody. Dog on a keyboard. It's a random. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the. I've never seen it automatically format with a comma. Anyways, it doesn't matter. So we've got our button over here, and if we interact with it, we can see that we're able to change the value every time we interact with it. And that is the way to change something in the UI with a HUD device. And that's to me, that's pretty cool. That's really handy. The HUD will stay up forever. It'll be shown for just that agent. You can show the same HUD with different values for different agents this way. Yeah. Look at that. So that's how that works. Now, the other way that we want to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this and this and this and this. And we'll get rid of the HUD because we're not going to use a HUD. Next up, we're going to use in a custom player, we're going to set up the UI for player. Now I just want to let's see. Just going to drag this over here for a second. Okay, so I don't want to rewrite so much code, so I'm going to do some copying and pasting and give you guys an idea of how to do this. So I always put this stuff on the custom player because I think it's a good place to manage the UI of the player. So the thing that we need to do the same thing. So just like this, we've got, you know, this blueprint that's got a canvas, and then we have an image block. And I don't think we can create this image with the border and everything. I don't think I've ever done it with code. But what I'm going to show you at the very least is how to do the text. Otherwise, what we could do is bring in, I wonder if I've got something for that we could use as an image behind. Why don't we grab something from maybe Christmas Tycoon? We have something in here that we can use. So many files. Just bear with me, guys, while I look for something that we can use. Nothing in that folder. Arcade. Got a lot of, oh, here we go. Okay, let's use something from, let's use this one. Yeah. Okay, so I've got an image that I can use a color block. That's true, but can you set the border and stuff like that? I can't remember. We don't do that because we usually just make stuff in Photoshop, but you probably can. So let me switch out scenes here, go back to here, and I'm gonna bring in an image file. So let's make